If you want an elegant dinner that's classy, simple, quick, and absolutely delightful, you've got to try this perfectly seared salmon with a savory cream sauce. Served with tender, crisp, roasted asparagus, this dish is the epitome of bold flavors, ready for you in minutes. Alright, to kick things off, we're going to go ahead and top and tail one shallot, peel it, and then slice it relatively thinly into some nice rounds. Once that's done, we're going to grab one bunch of asparagus. I would recommend finding some that are relatively thick, or at least medium thick, so they don't overcook or cook too fast in the oven. We need to get that woody bottom quarter off, so just kind of find where it starts to give way, pop one. That's a good guide to tell you where the rest of your asparagus needs to be trimmed. That bottom section is very woody and just really does not get tender and is no fun to bite into. So slice all of that off and throw your asparagus onto a sheet tray. Go ahead and preheat your oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. Drizzle with olive oil, season with salt and freshly cracked pepper. And then we'll give everything a toss to thoroughly combine with that seasoning and oil. And then drop those shallots right over top. They're going to get nice and roasty, toasty in that oven as well. We'll just go ahead and cook those for about 10 to 15 minutes depending on the thickness of your asparagus until they are tender but still have a nice bite to them. Tent them with some foil and set them aside. We'll come back to them to plate here shortly. Next up, I've got some salmon fillets here, about 5 to 6 ounces each. As written, this recipe is for 4 portions. I'm going to season them up with some Cajun seasoning. You could just use plain salt and pepper if you'd like. Drizzle some olive oil into a skillet over medium-high heat and then lay those fillets in flesh side down. Give them a nice little press to make sure they're making good contact with that hot oil. And then we're just going to let them cook for about 3 to 4 minutes or until they have a nice, beautiful golden brown crust on that first side and are maybe 50% of the way cooked. We'll give them a flip, and then we want to let that skin make, again, really good contact with the pan so it gets nice and crisp for anyone who plans on eating it. And then I'm cooking mine to about medium rare, but if you want to cook yours more well done, cook them a little longer. I gave those 2 minutes on that skin side, then pulled them out. Next up, I'm adding a couple tablespoons of butter, followed by a small to medium white onion, which I have diced. I'm going to saute that out for 3 to 4 minutes or until that onion is starting to soften and getting slightly translucent, at which point I'm going to add in 3 minced cloves of garlic. Stir that in until it's fragrant, again about 30 seconds to a minute. At this point, I'm going to sprinkle in about a tablespoon or a heaped tablespoon of flour to help make a roux. Stir all that flour in until it is fully absorbed and cooking in that butter. Then I'm going to splash in some white wine. As always, the exact ingredient amounts will be down below in the description as well as on the website, so don't get too hung up on taking notes. Once that white wine is cooked out and it's beginning to thicken, we're going to add in some heavy whipping cream, or half and half if you're not feeling as indulgent. Stir that around and bring it up to a simmer. And then I'm going to add in about a half a cup of minced sun-dried tomatoes. Bring a little bit of the oil they're packed in, that's just fine as well. Stir those in to warm them up, and then I'm just going to grab a heaping handful of spinach leaves. These are going to wilt down beautifully into this sauce and add a nice vegetal note and green color. Of course, we want to season this now with fresh cracked pepper and a pinch of salt. We are going to add some cheese here in just a second, so don't go too crazy. Speaking of the cheese, there's some freshly grated parmigiano Reggiano cheese. Bring your heat down to low now, and just melt that cheese into the sauce, and we can begin to plate this up. I'm laying down a bed of asparagus and some of those roasted shallots. Next up, we'll bring on a beautifully cooked golden brown salmon fillet. And then because we have that beautiful crust on that salmon, I don't want to spoon the sauce directly over the top of it, so I'm just going to spoon a few heap spoonfuls down over the edges and let it drip onto the plate. Garnish with a couple basil leaves, an extra sprinkling of parmigiano Reggiano, and I gotta say, that's a really pretty plate of food that's pretty easy to make and only took about 15 minutes or so. As you can see, that salmon is just perfectly cooked, a nice opaque center there, still a nice medium rare right in the heart of it. And while the asparagus is delightful and the perfectly cooked salmon is a thing of beauty, this sauce is just unbelievable. I mean, you put that much cream and butter and wine and sun-dried tomatoes and anything, it's going to be great, but this definitely lives up to the hype. Got to try that asparagus. I love roasting asparagus. It almost gets a nice meaty flavor in the oven. I mean, this is just a dish of food that it's so easy to make and so wonderful. I definitely recommend it. Give it a try. Let me know what you think, or at the very least, go make something else delicious.